here we go. I think we
The
are.
American voice says we're recording.
Aye,
Yeah.
Right, that looks good. Oh, it just said that I said Luna.
My dog's
There you go.
growling at the door, which isn't too comforting since I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, do you reckon there's some ghosties out there? Is it Louise?
She spotted something.
Season.
You gonna let the doggy in? Oh, cutie.
She's growling.
Okay, so new episode of Too Old to Punk with myself, Karl, and we have who else?
Gaz.
From all the way in sunny Sweden, not in Stockholm right now, are you guys? Where are you?
Just out in the countries. So about an hour from Stockholm.
Oh, nice. Looking winter.
Gnesta.
You what?
Gnesta. In a very whiny accent.
Gnesta.
Dark and cold.
Gnesta. Dark and cold. And also Darren.
I am from sunny Brighton.
In sunny Brighton. And we have our lovely guest for today, the one and only Marv Gadgie.
Evening.
Okay, so main thing that we're talking about is really just talking about why do we still keep doing this stupid stuff
Being old.
into our older age? Why do we keep going on with this daft punk business? And obviously, Marv's got some interesting stories. So just to start off a bit, Marv, just can you tell us a little bit about how you got into punk and whatnot, and just the beginnings, really?
Well, I'm an 80s kid, so I was like at primary school during the new wave era. I missed all the original punk thing, but I remember like the Jam and Adam and the Ants and Cindy Lauper and the Specials, Ultravox, that sort of era. So that sort of new wave punk. It left an impression on me, but I'm not going to pretend I was like really cool when I was 7 and was buying 2-tone singles and things. But then as I got older, I was a bit of an indie kid, but like Nirvana and all of that sort of thing happened. And but the big thing for me that I got into punk was the New York CBGB's thing, particularly Blondie, who my feelings on that band are well documented, as anyone will tell you. But from there, Talking Heads, Ramones, Patti Smith, Richard Hell, Television, and then from that, the Sex Pistols, the Clash, and I was into sort of right on political stuff like U2 and things like that. So I was like indie with a sort of political sort of vibe to it, and that got me. I wanted a bit more, I wanted a bit stronger in the political side of things, and then I bought a Sham 69 LP, and my mum hated it. Said, "What's this rubbish? What are you listening to?" Said, "Put U2 back on. I like them." And at that moment, I realised there was something in it. It was.
Pick your bum off.
I'm a punk rocker now. Yeah. So that Sham 69 LP, it's quite an innocuous sort of thing. It's like the best of Sham 69 for £2 at a record fair. And that sort of set me off. And then from there, you just dig deeper, don't you? And you find Conflict and Discharge and Crass. And
so how old were you when you first bought that Sham 69 record then?
I was probably sort of mid to late teens, maybe 14, 15. Maybe 16, something like that. But I'd been like listening to Blondie and Ramones and Talking Heads for a few years before that. But I didn't think, I'm a punk rocker, this is punk rock. It was just music that I'd found. And it was a bit out of time, really, because this was maybe in like the mid to late 80s. And all my friends were into like horrible trap music, and nobody knew who the Ramones and Blondie and Talking Heads were. And I was a bit of a black sheep in that respect. I was like going back 10 years for all my records, but yeah, it's here we are now, like
still a punk rock.
30 odd years later, still doing this nonsense.
But you so you got into Sham 69, and then you said like you got into like Discharge and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
That same time or a little bit later?
Yeah, that was a little bit later because it was in the days when you didn't have the internet. You couldn't just log on and put, punk rock bands and find like millions of bands and like obscure Colombian D-beat bands and things like that. You had to really dig, didn't you? And you had to talk to people, and your mates had a band, had a record, and you'd go around their house to listen to it, and you'd tape it off them, or they'd tape it for you, and then you'd have a record, you'd do the same, and yeah, it was an organic thing over the years. I'd go in record shops, just look in the punk sections, and I found a Discharge record. It's a bit embarrassing, really, but I hated it when I first heard it. It was the Y12-inch, and in my naivety, I thought it was an LP. So I put it on at 33. I thought, this is awful. Like, everybody's telling me these are like this amazing band. I thought it was this really slow, boring, sludgy metal band, which I hated. And then a few months later, I accidentally played it on what I thought was the wrong speed, and that was it. Like, life changed that day. It was before Discharge and after Discharge, isn't it? That was it. I think that Sham 69 was like the start, but hearing that Discharge LP on 12-inch on the right speed, that was the start of it.
Took you to a new world after that.
Yeah. Life's never the same after Discharge. Why 12 inches?
No.
Had you been to any gigs by this point?
Yeah, the first gig I ever went to was an indie gig in 1990. When I was about 16 or 17. I went to see Northside, this like Manchester.
I remember them. Yeah,
indie band. Yeah, and me and my brother went to see him again a few months earlier ago. We saw him again like 30 years later. But I loved it. It was brilliant. I went to a lot of indie festivals and Glastonbury in the early 90s. But one of the key moments was me and a mate both went to university at the same time. Graham Slytone, you probably know him, do you?
Yeah.
Well, we grew up together, and at home we'd be like, he was one of the people I was swapping exploited records with and listening to Dwarfs LPs with and stuff like that at each other's house. But he went to Bristol and got good friends with the Bristol crust punks, that lot. And he sent me a flyer, and it was an all-dayer in Southampton that Rich Levine had put on, the STE Collective. And at the time, I didn't know anybody, obviously. Looking back, I probably know about half the room now, but at the time, they're all complete strangers to me. But I met Shutdown, Coxey's band. I saw Tony Suspect's band. I saw Bob Tilton. And I didn't know who any of them were at the time. And looking back, they're all people who nowadays I'm good friends with and know them well. But there was a moment then when, after one of the sets, I went to buy a record and I bought it from someone who was in the band. It might have been Coxey, actually, Shutdown. And that struck me as amazing, that this fellow was playing guitar in a band, and then I was like buying a record off him and he was serving me. And it wasn't like some lackey doing it for them, and they weren't backstage hiding away. And
that's a rock
I
star
noticed
thing.
all the bands were in the crowd, and Graham was there. He turned up in the Bristol crust TARDIS. Remember that minibus that used to arrive, and it just kept coming. There'd be like hundreds of them would all pile out. And he started talking to somebody. I said, "Who's that?" And he said, "Oh, it's so-and-so out of Underclass or something who were playing." I said, "Oh, you know the band?" And he was, "Oh, yeah, we put them on." And that to me was just, nowadays I just take it for granted, but that was another life. That was life-changing in the same way as hearing Discharge. It wasn't like where the band are backstage and then they come on stage and everybody claps and cheers and then they go off again, and if you're really lucky you might get backstage and meet them, and that to me, that all dayer in Southampton was a really big turning point for me. And I've spoken to Rich Levine about it before, and how important it was to me, that one gig. And then after that, I was going to DIY gigs all the time then, and then I started doing them myself in Boston when I ended up here. So.
But that Southampton gig, mate, did you go down on your own to that Southampton show? Well, where were you living then?
I lived in Chichester. I was at university in Sussex.
Okay.
And I went with my girlfriend at the time, who's no longer my girlfriend. She wasn't much longer after that, but she was quite interested as well. So we both went over on the train. And as I said, we'd normally go over to see bands like Sultans of Ping or Carter and the Charlatans, which I still enjoyed, but this was something completely different and totally changed the way I saw going to a gig and what it was all about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening in a similar sort of way. I was listening to a punk and hardcore punk, but I also really liked all that kind of indie stuff as well. So I'd be going to gigs at the Waterfront in Norwich, or going to Cambridge, or going to Nottingham, and I'll be going to see indie bands. I saw Charlatans a few times. I see things like Chapter House and Lemonheads when they were first playing, like Ned's Atomic Dustbin.
We're still allowed to like other bands, aren't we? I'm just
of course. And I still love a lot of that under stuff.
When I used to them, that took me like a little while to figure out, because I can still relate to when you're like 14, 15 and you find like Discharge or Black Flag or whatever it is, punk band. And you're like, at that age, aren't you? So like, I'm a punk now. This is like, you need a label. You need like, now I'm a punk rocker and that's it. And then I really struggled when I started like also getting into indie when I was like 18, 19 as well. And it took me a little while to figure out like, you can like both things.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. I've been listening to Ultravox today. Sorry.
So how old were you? So roughly when was that Southampton gig then?
What was that? Sorry.
Roughly when was that Southampton gig? Can you remember?
It'll have been in the mid-90s. In fact, yeah, it was during Euro '96. Because I remember I missed Germany-Croatia to watch it.
What was that one?
Yeah, that's what I mean, Darren. There were people there who, like, nowadays, if I could go back in time, I would probably know like 3/4 of the room. But at the time, I was a complete stranger. I knew my mate Graham, and that was it. It was And when I look back and see, that's how amazing things are. That all those people from Brighton, Bristol, Portsmouth, Southampton are now like good friends. And
I think the Southampton had quite a nice scene, really friendly, really good people.
Yeah,
that you still see around today.
Yeah, I'm still friends with like Rich and Geraldine. I went down for the big gig Geraldine did for her birthday.
Yeah.
For COVID, I still write stuff for Tony Suspect, his fanzine, and stay in touch with him quite regular. And I saw Nathan with Armoured Flu Unit in Derby a few weeks ago, and we're all still here, aren't we? We're all still doing it.
Yeah.
Was that Geraldine who lived in Sweden for a while? Same Geraldine, G? No, was that different?
I think so.
She's from Bristol way as well.
Oh, no, that's different, Geraldine. That's I remember G. Yeah. She had pink hair. Yeah. She was in the crust TARDIS.
Yeah.
She's living in London now.
Maybe, yeah. She's like, went back and was doing art and stuff in London, I think.
Yeah, I think Kev sees her sometimes.
Yeah, they're good friends. I think. She was together with Yucca from Wolf Brigade for a long time. Yeah,
because she's into all the weird magic stuff and that, and things, sex magic that Kev is, and all those things that they go up to that they call art.
But what was that? I was just interested what the venue in Southampton was in those days.
The Joiners Arms.
The Joiners, I thought it might have been.
Yeah.
That's still going, I think.
Yeah. I went. I say that gig I went to was there.
Oh right.
A few years ago, just about 2020, just before COVID. It was like a few months before everything shut down. So
and I saw Rich at the weekend, and he's doing his. I think it's next year. He's doing his 60th birthday there.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's nice that it's still going, isn't it?
Yeah. Can't be that many venues that are stuck around that long from those days.
No, still doing punk rock gigs.
Yeah, fantastic.
I like the fact that you pointed out, Marv, that it really, one of the big things that struck you though was like the non-rock star, approachable, non-hierarchical sort of interaction of going to that gig. like, and that having a kind of lasting sort of impact on you. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, the bands were great. I love the music. I think Tony Suspect's band played first at Portiswood or something.
Portiswood, yeah.
Yeah, Underclass were like nothing I'd ever seen. It was absolutely savage. And who else? There was a band called Cradle, who were a bit weird, but I quite liked it. Shutdown were amazing. And it was and there was a ska punk band from Scotland. It might have been Ex Cathedra, I think.
Oh.
And there was such a variety. There was some melodic stuff, some tuneful stuff, some ska stuff, and some absolutely savage stuff. And it was all quite intoxicating to me. But and I loved all the music, and that like really, you know, got me excited. But the fact, like I said, that you could just hang out and have a beer with the band after the gig was as big a deal as like seeing the bands, as witnessing what was going on. Everybody going berserk, stage diving and piling on each other, all that carry on. That was wonderful as well. But yeah, the fact that lad you were talking to was playing on stage 5 minutes ago was, like I say, I can't stress how important, how big a deal that was to me. And nowadays it's just something I take for granted. I go to a gig, I see a load of people I know and they're in a band, and it just is. It's just how it is now, isn't it? I think that's partly why we keep doing it. Yeah. It's a way to keep in touch with your friends, isn't it? It's a way to see people that you know, a way to carry on meeting friends. Like I go to a gig in Leeds, Manchester Punk Festival, go over to Nottingham a lot, and you know half the room. It's amazing. Whereas if you went to see Gaslight Anthem at Rock City, you'd go with the people you know, you stand with the people you know, you pay £8 for a can of beer, £45 for a t-shirt, and you'd be herded around like you know, like your farm animals or something.
Yeah.
And the band would come on and then go off again, and you wouldn't meet them. And it's another world, isn't it? And that's what I think so great about it.
Yeah. Also, Rock City, going on past experiences of myself and people I know, quite easily could go out there with a few teeth missing or a broken jaw because of the security.
Rock City, for example, not casting aspersions on them, but you know, any sort of venue, any sort of club or a large venue like that. Yeah.
It's a whole different experience.
You what, sorry?
It's a whole different experience.
Yeah. I think that's why we stick around, because I think I'm going to a gig, but I'm also going to see my mates.
Yeah.
I'm going to see my friends and people I know, and when there's a gig in Boston, somebody's coming over who I know, and they're going to stay over, or they're going to sit and have a pint with them beforehand. That's just as big a deal as watching some bands. Because we've heard it all before, haven't we?
So probably we should think about them. So between going to uni in Chichester, right? You said, was it straight from there to Boston?
Yeah, the girlfriend at the time was from Boston. I'm from Middlesbrough. I'm from right up in the other end of the country, and neither of us had a job. And we sort of flitted about between the two, and I managed to find some work in Boston. So it took me to maybe 3 or 4 months of work. So I got a flat, and then that relationship ended. But I stuck around because I was playing Sunday League football and made a few friends, and I discovered this wonderful place called the Indian Queen. So through Sunday League football and a good pub, and I'm a simple man of simple pleasures. That did me. So I was like, yeah, I'll stick around here for a bit. I didn't intend to stay around too long, but then I met the future Mrs. Gadgie, and here we are. We're still here now.
So can you tell us about your first thoughts of Boston when you got there? I should point out I was born in Boston Pilgrim Hospital for people listening. So my mum's from Boston, and I spent a lot of my childhood in Boston as well. So I should point that out.
Initially, I thought it was wonderful. It's very different nowadays, but there was a thriving live music scene, I grew up in a little town called Gisborough, just outside Middlesbrough, which didn't have like a live music scene, and it wasn't allowed a nightclub because there'd be too much fighting. It was kind of a rough old town, like. So to find there were like 3 or 4 pubs that had live bands in the bar every Friday, Saturday night, and sometimes on a Tuesday or a Thursday was just amazing. And whether it was just like a covers band or a student band or punk bands or whatever, it didn't matter. I thought it was fantastic. So I'd go around. Well, this will mean something to you. It won't to everyone else. But the Axe and Cleaver, which was a famous like rock pub.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, you've been
years
there?
and years ago.
So, and I played Sunday League football for them. It was quite a place. Then there was the Indian Queen, Carpenter's Arms, and that sort of triangle of pubs would have live bands every weekend, and I just was blown away. I thought, this is wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
And I met some people and started playing Sunday League and Saturday League football. I was getting work, and I'd just finished university. I was newly single, and I was earning money, and I had my own flat, and I was going out to watch bands. I was like running wild. I was living the dream. And
Can you remember some of the first bands you saw?
yeah, at the Indian Queen, there was a student night at a really like awful nightclub, but it was brilliant. It was £1 a pint. It was £1 in on a Thursday night. So you go out to the Indian Queen. It was happy hour. Happy hour there was free pool and £1 a pint. I had a free jukebox as well. And then we'd go to the nightclub. £1 to get in and £1 a pint. You just go out on a Thursday and get smashed on a tenner. It was fantastic. And I was there with a couple of friends I've met, and this fella came up to me with a flyer for a gig. So I was wearing I think it was a Dead Kennedys t-shirt or UK Subs or something. And he sort of saw me and he said, "Hey mate, do you like punk rock?" I was like, yeah. He said, "Oh, well, there's a gig on Saturday. It's at the Indian Queen." I said, "Oh, I know where that is, yeah." And he said, "Well, you've got to go upstairs though." And I didn't realise. So there was an upstairs room. So I went there, and the first gig was like that Southampton gig all over again. Urco were playing, who I'm sure you're familiar with, just like brutal D-beat. There was not an indie, sort of more like an emo-y band called Surface. You'll know these, I know Sam Jarvis, Nick Bowser, Hutchie. There were people who, we called it the Whole Beach Emo Enclave. There was Whole Beach, a little town down the road, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
It's where my dad lives.
Yeah.
See, part of that collective, Karl.
Yeah, it was, they always seemed to produce emo bands, and Boston produced like brutal power violence and hardcore bands. And there was a band called Poindexter played that were like a sort of tuneful band. Yeah, bless him. He sadly passed away recently.
Yeah.
Daryl Skinner. And I can't remember. There was somebody else. I can't remember. But yeah, that was amazing. That was just, this is fantastic. This is like, again, it was like that Southampton gig all over. But I now live here, so I can come and watch this like all the time. And the scene was sort of getting back up on its legs again. Like Urco and Poindexter were like trying to build it again, because it apparently, unbeknown to me, it had been a bit of a scene that had died down a bit when everybody moved away. So I got involved straight away, and within 4 or 5 gigs, I was writing a fanzine and helping out, booking gigs, putting bands up, and yeah, it was the rest is history.
Is that when you first started writing fanzines, Marv?
Yeah. I was into fanzines. As a football supporter, I used to go watch Middlesbrough when I was a kid, and I'd always buy the fanzine. There's a really famous fanzine Middlesbrough do called Fly Me to the Moon, and I think it's the fanzine with the most issues ever.
Oh,
wow.
It's broke the record for any sort of fanzine. Yeah. It's on like, I don't know, number 800 or something ridiculous. But I used to read that, and I stopped reading the matchday programme because the fanzine was more sort of real and authentic, and it had swearing in it, and they would slag off the players, and it was
Brilliant.
it was like the sanitised, clean match day programme. So I was aware what fanzines were, and I picked up a few punk ones, and I thought, I can't sing or play any instruments or anything. So I thought, well, that'll be my contribution. So I started writing a fanzine, and I interviewed Urco for the first one, and who was the other one? Poindexter. I interviewed Daryl Skinner and Lee and Daz from Urco, and that was it. Issue 1, 35 issues, hand stitched, and we just gave them away really at gigs, and that was it.
When was that roughly?
Sorry?
When was that roughly?
That would have been the very late 90s, 1990. I think it was March 97, the first one.
Were you distributing them locally, Marv, or were you also like sending them further afield and with people ordering?
Well, yeah, we copied them up on a friend's dad's photocopier when he was at work. He had an office at his house, and we went in and scanned them, and we got about 30, 35 copies, and we gave them out at gigs. But I sent some to fanzines, and I sent one to Mel Hughes in Northern Ireland. Can you remember the fanzine No Barcodes Necessary?
Yeah.
The Mel
And he used to like send me tapes. He'd make me tapes of bands to try and educate me. And I sent him an Urco demo, and he absolutely loved them. And he like interviewed them and released one of their records. And again, it's one of them things I realised then that everybody helps each other out. You send somebody you've never met in Enniskillen a cassette of some band that played the pub to like 40 people, and they love it, and release a record by them. And then years later, I bumped into him. I finally met him when I was in Belfast with Urco, and it's crazy, isn't it? It's like, you can't explain that to people who aren't part of this, can you?
That's amazing.
And that, again, it's another one of them things that you just don't get that in other, being a fan of other sorts of music, I don't think, yeah.
I was just listening to this panel discussion when they showed this the Fugazi documentary. We have Fugazi from Washington DC in Stockholm the other day, and they had like a panel discussion afterwards with David from Refused and a guy called Jens. And David was telling a story like him and his friends travelled all the way down from Umeå in the north of Sweden to see Fugazi play in this town Gävle, which is where this guy Jens came from. And they had no idea where they were going to stay or anything like that. No plans, just you had to see the band. And then, but they did have this like a compilation record, and there was a series of compilation records in Sweden called Really Fast. And it'd been about 10 volumes or something. And they'd checked out, in those days, back in the early 90s, like the contact details of the band was like often like just one of the band members' phone numbers. And they really liked this band and they said, this band's from Gävle. So they just like got the record cover, called the guys and said, we've just come down from north of Sweden to see Fugazi and seen you playing in this band on this record. Can we stay at your house? They said, yeah, of course. And they've been friends for 30 years now. It's amazing.
Yeah, we've all got stories like that, haven't we? That's the thing. It's fantastic. And I think that is, like I said earlier, that is one of the things that keeps us doing this, because it is a group of friends. It's a network of friends,
totally.
As the cliche goes, yeah.
Could you say a little bit about, because obviously Boston, like you said, has gone through different waves, and it was the old days, Mega City 4, Vehicle Derek and all that when I was I was 13, 14, and my older mates would go to them gigs. But you started off, you were at that big wave, weren't you, of Boston when... Yeah, become like the mecca where everyone wanted to go play just because they knew there were kids having a great time.
It's one of them things where you're living in a golden age and you don't necessarily realise it. Sadly, we have to mention Jas Toomer, who was bass player in Urco and various 101 other bands, but he was part of it as well. He was a prodigious writer to people, like fanzines, cassettes, records. He'd write for fanzines, review records, and he didn't have a telly, and he'd just spend all night writing letters and trading and things. And sadly, he died in 2001. But for the first few years that I was there, me, him, and the Urco lads, Lee and Craig and Daz, we'd put on the bands, and it was okay. It was picking up. We were having fun and meeting people, making connections like Peterborough, Nottingham, Derby, like East Midlands sort of places. Maybe further afield, going down to London every so often, or up to Leeds or something. But I said to the landlady once, right, I'm going to have a go at putting on gigs regularly. This was probably 1998, 1999, something like that. So I'm going to put on a gig every month for 3 months. And if it works, we'll keep doing it. And if it doesn't, we'll knock it on the head. And I can't remember the bands put on, but it was a real mix. Like Red Flag 77, I think they were one of them. I can't remember, but we put on three or four gigs in a row, and it worked really well. And so the landlady said, "Yeah, keep doing it. You can have the room for free." And there was Urco, and they had another band called Los Cunos Electricas, and there were a few other bands like pop punk and hardcore bands. And between us, we got a decent scene going. But when Jazz passed away, it just completely died. It disappeared. Everybody lost the enthusiasm for it, and Urco and the four bands Jazz was in obviously folded straight away. And then one night we had these two lads turned up and absolutely lied through their teeth to try and get a gig. And they said, they were young lads. They said, "Oh, we've got a band called Slut Pumpkin." And I think this Jazz was around at the time. And so, can we have a gig? We've played in Lincoln and we've played in Nottingham. We're a punk band. And we said, "Yeah, okay then, mate. Yeah, no worries." So we put them on, and I think that it was with Phobia. Or it was somebody like really mental like that. And we're thinking, what on earth are these kids going to make of it? And it was their first gig. They'd lied just to get a gig, but we didn't mind. And then, the usual thing, you become friends with them. They bring a few of their friends, and you do them a tape of records you think they'd like and pass on fanzines to them. And they started travelling to gigs, and then they built up a bit of a scene. And then, it went berserk. Just passed away, sadly, and it died a bit, but then it picked up again. And I remember, again, there was one gig. It was a Monday night, which is an awful night, and it was a bass player out of Code 13. It's called Rick, and Code 13 had played the IQ, and he got in touch and said, "Oh, my band played. Can I bring my new band? I've got what they call Path of Destruction." And all of these kids turned up, and they brought all of their mates with them, and it was like a youth club. It was like a sixth form, honestly. And it was a Monday night, the worst possible night. And they all went absolutely berserk. It was absolutely feral. These kids were like lifting the guitarists up, jumping on them, attacking them. And I was thinking, there's something in this. And from then on, in like the post-Jazz Tumor era, that was the night when I thought, maybe we're going to be all right. Maybe it's going to be okay. And then, it was. And we had bands from all over the world.
This is Indian Queen, this is all Indian. Sorry? This was all at Indian Queen, or? Yeah,
all at the same venue. We just had the one venue. Yeah. And we had bands from Japan, Canada, America, all over Europe, all over the UK.
Didn't you make the likes of Tragedy in that play there as well, or?
Yeah, Tragedy. That was a Thursday. There was Tragedy, Selfish, and Dysphere.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
Amazing.
And the IQ in Boston.
This little pub with a capacity of 100 in Boston. Yeah. And I was at work late that night. Edit this bit out, please. I had a parents' evening that night. I arrived there about 8 o'clock, and I'd left two of my mates in charge, two of those young lads who were in young bands. And they hadn't even started. I said, "I'm the first band played." He said, "I know, not yet." I was like, "Right, come on, get started." And it finished. It must have, I don't know, it must have finished like midnight or something. And it was absolutely mental. And that was crazy. Like that flyer that I made, I just copied a picture out of a fighting fantasy book of two goblins or something, and pasted the band logos on. And that flyer keeps turning up on like Instagram or Facebook, and people send me it or tag me. So, no, I remember this gig. And I was like, yeah, I made that post down for it. Yeah, it's gone down in legend. But I mean, Drop Dead played, Fucked Up played, Municipal Waste played, Varukers. It was insane. We were batting above, punching above our weight like massively. And I remember once when we got code 13, and all the other cities were moaning because they had like 3 gigs. I think they played like Leeds, Boston, and London or something, and Bristol and Brighton and Southampton and wherever else, and Bradford were all saying, why haven't we got them? Why have Boston got them? And I said, because it's a mental place that bands want to go to. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, it got crazy, and more people came, more and more bands formed, and then there was like another wave after that of that initial group of kids, all their younger brothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends, all they started coming along, and they then started forming bands, and they were like 15 years old. And the landlady was saying, Marv, look, we can't let these kids in. They were pleading. They were saying, oh, please, it's Brezhnev from Amsterdam. Please let us in. Like, we won't drink, we promise. And, and they all became, like, 17, 18-year-olds who started booking gigs, doing bands, record labels. And then there was a third wave after that of mad kids. And then, sadly, a combination of things that happened, that they all buggered off to university and traveling the world. They went to Australia and went to Newcastle for university, and sadly it sort of died a bit, and the landlady and landlord retired, and the pub turned into an awful wine bar. And that was about 2009, 10, something like that. Yeah. And that was it. So that period between about 1997, 8 and 2008, 9, it was.
Yeah. Must have been.
I booked like over 100 gigs. It was absolutely mental. And I still meet people to this day who talk about it, and they don't want to talk anything else.
It must have been gutting when it came to an end.
Yeah, it was. It was devastating. We carried on with gigs. Somebody did gigs in a church hall, and there's a few other pubs have tried it, but it's never picked up and been a regular thing like that ever again. But there's still a few of us about. We still go to gigs, and we put on gigs every so often, but nothing as feral as the Indian Queen.
I mean, you had some them young'uns. Well, they weren't. I guess they're not young'uns, but you had some great bands come out of Boston, though, didn't you?
Yeah. And we still do.
But really good, still do. But the bands that I can remember, like Burning the Prospect and all them
Yeah. Burning the Prospect signed to the label ran by somebody out of Napalm Death at one point.
Wow.
At one point there was when Boston first had the big influx of EU migrants from places like Poland. There was a big contingent of Polish punks arrived, and they all started coming to the gigs. And one of them did a label, and they released a split between their band and Burning the Prospect.
Wow.
And we had loads of Polish punks coming in. We got Polish bands coming on tour because of these connections. These fellas were like bringing their mates band from home. And that was I've forgotten about that. But yeah, Burning the Prospect, then Wolf Beast Destroyer.
Yeah.
Were the sort of next step from that. And they're still on and off, like sporadically playing. And again, just brutal DB. And then there's Gristle, who are currently our local heroes. And that's Lee from Urco, and Tommy from Wolf Beast, and Skelly, who you'll probably know. He's been in various bands like Life Grind, if you remember them, and and Jez from Nottingham, who was out for the count, they're currently playing gigs regularly now. They're more of a negative approach, SSD
Right.
sort of thing. Though Lee would tell you that there's a bit of status quo in there as well, but I can't say it myself. But, yeah.
In his mind.
Yeah.
SSD.
Patient Zero, they're another one.
Yeah, Patient Zero. Yeah.
They were like they were that first lot of young lads who were all inspired when I recorded them a Limp Wrist 7-inch or Los Crudos or something, and then they just completely ripped them off. But it was brilliant. It was like 17-year-old kids were. I think the drummer. We went on tour of Iceland with them. I booked a tour. Sort of a tour. We went to Reykjavik for 3 days. Played 2 gigs. And Joe, the drummer, was 15 at the time. And his older brother, Steve, was a guitarist. And, he swore on the radio, on Icelandic radio. And he was like a 15-year-old away with a bunch of degenerate punk rockers, getting drunk and swearing on the radio. It was ridiculous. And, we played an abandoned fish factory with iAdapt. It was... And I was stood there just watching it, thinking, like, how has this happened?
That's amazing.
And that brings us back to like what we're talking about, doesn't it? That it's amazing what we do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I just think it's amazing though. Like, I think for people who haven't been to Boston and don't really know what that place is like, it's really hard to kind of portray how unique the scene and the history of music has been there, and you've been there now for such a long time, and you've seen, like you said, all these waves. And it's just mad that this little place with all its challenges that it's had and has produced such a vibrant like history of punk and hardcore, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think the key thing, and I've had this discussion many times, is that the kids, as we call them, who are now like having their 40th birthdays and things like that, and a lot of them are still doing it. So like Jay books gigs. He runs a pub in Nottingham, Tap and Tumbler, and he books punk gigs all the time there. Danny from Wolf Beast and Burnley Prospect, he's part of that as well. He's been in various bands. Luke from Breacher, he's a sound man, professional sound man. And there's lots of people who have carried on doing creative stuff, like being in bands, doing fanzines, being artists, things like that. Tattoo artists, like Craig from Urco's
amazing,
a successful tattoo artist now, but the kids, as they were, didn't really know the wider punk scene. So you weren't dealing with kids who were turning up with, Chomsky books hanging out of their bag and sort of Boba Fett key rings off, hanging off their trousers and wallet chains, and they all just took it in No Effects and Green Day hoodies, and they just heard stuff like that. And if we put on like a grindcore band or like a pop punk band, it didn't matter. They just said, "Is there a gig?" So yeah, there's a gig next Saturday. Right, I'll be there. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter whether it was Phobia or whether it was like Worm, and they'd just turn up and go absolutely mental. And like, it was crazy, like human pyramids, lifting guitarists up, stage diving, speak stack diving, crowd surfing. There was all manner of stupidity. Like there was a trick where this girl would stand on a stool and everyone would lift the stool up and she'd put her hands to the ceiling. So they'd be like, she'd be jammed in there, like everyone under it, holding the stool up, and her hands on the ceiling. And if they moved the stool, she'd fall like 10 foot and probably break her ankle. And then she'd just dive off it, and everyone would catch her. And I was thinking, Jesus Christ, this is like some 17, 18-year-old kid, and it was madness. But yeah, they didn't care about like scene fashions, like there were in other parts, like you go to the 1 in 12 club and it'd be like the crusty anarcho scene, or you'd go to a certain venue in Leeds or whatever, and it'd be it'd be more of an emo sort of scene. And like, there was none of that. It was just whatever gig was on, they'd come and go berserk. And they didn't even drink most of them because they were too young. So all that youthful energy. And a lot of them now, even they're in their 40s, and I still see a lot of them now, and they're still around, but they're not really into punk anymore. But there's loads of them have got tattoos, IQ hardcore tattoos on their legs or their feet or their shoulder or their back or something. There's this generation of kids from Boston who've got this little IQ hardcore tattoo.
It's amazing. Like, it's like the place itself is the draw kind of thing. It's like people go, it's about the place more than the bands that are playing and this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It was very much just the fact that everyone had gone mad. Yeah. I remember meeting Sned with Devon from Drop Dead. He was guitarist in Drop Dead at the time at a gig in Leeds, and they were coming to play the Halloween gig, which I was really looking forward to because they're like one of my favourite bands ever. And he was travelling or something. I think he was stopping with Sned, and Sned introduced me, and he said, "Oh, this is Marv from Boston." And this fella I'd never met was in my favourite band. Said, "Oh, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I've heard it's a really mad place to visit." And Sned said, "Yeah, it'll be the best gig of the tour." I thought, this is crazy. Yeah. It's like, you don't meet people who you've never met before, who are in your favourite band, and they say they're looking forward to coming playing and stopping at your house. And it was absolutely insane. It was the best gig I've ever, I think, of all the IQ ones. That was just like...
And is it all the way from the States as well? And it's just like punk worldwide is such a local connected thing. Yeah. It's amazing.
But there'd be people would come down from Leeds, people come up from the South Coast, people come from London.
Yeah.
People had come from all over. I remember there was a minibus came from Edinburgh once. I think there was one gig. People came from Southampton and drove home again. It was like midweek. It was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday or something. Might have been that tragedy one. I said, this is crazy. Like, people are driving here from Southampton and then driving home again, or Edinburgh or wherever. And yeah, that Drop Dead gig was absolutely phenomenal. And the next morning, because it was a Sunday, I had a training day with work the next day, and one of my colleagues said she'd pick me up because it was in Boston. It was at the local college, and she was very much a very nice middle-class lady who didn't really know much about punk rock. And as I was getting ready, and she said, "Oh, I'll pick you up like about 8:30." And I said to the next day, Drop Dead and Sned and Rob Keto, all these like stinky touring crusties with beards and dreadlocks, you can imagine, we're all like stood on the pavement getting in the van, and we're saying our goodbyes, as you do. And she pulled up like next to them, and she looked at me, and she looked at me, and I went, I'll be 1 minute. I'll be 1 minute. I said, right, I've got to go. This is my lift to work now. And they were, yeah, cheers, bye. And they all get in the bus and said, who the fuck was that? I said, oh, just some friends of mine. And I thought, I don't think I can explain, like, in a 5-10 minute like car journey to around the corner to Boston College, like what it's all about. I mean, we've been talking about it for an hour or so now, haven't we?
Yeah. But it's I explain to people who don't. It's impossible to try and explain it to. Yeah. I remember, like I said to you guys before, I remember going to tour the States once, my old band, and I was working in a bar at the time and tried to explain to my boss that I was going to be away for a couple of weeks. Is it way off to? I was doing like a States tour for a couple of weeks. He's like, the State, but you guys massive? I was like, no. It's like playing in like some barbershop the first night, I think, in someone's basement. And he's like, how does that equate? And I said, well, it's hard to explain really, but
it's impossible to explain what we do and why we do it. That idea. Like, I remember I went on holiday to Antigua. I went to stop with the singer of Brezhnev, Michael, who was he moved out there to be a boat builder, and this really posh woman at work who got on everybody's nerves, like, oh yes, just a couple of things from me, and me and my husband, we go in here, and I said, oh, I went there. I said, oh, where did you stay? Did you stay in this hotel? I said, oh no, I stayed at I stayed at a boat building yard in English Harbour, and she was like, what? And I'd done everything she'd done, but it cost me like the flights, and it cost her like about 6 times more than me. And she was loading it up about how much she'd spent on her holiday. I said, yeah, I went there, yeah. Yeah, stopped on my mate's spare bedroom, borrowed his Jeep, went snorkeling, and got drunk on rum in this like bar with some locals. It was, yeah, and again, it's wonderful, isn't it? I watched the Champions League final in Copenhagen. I've got drunk in Amsterdam and got in to watch Suicidal Tendencies free at the Melkweg, and you know, all of this, and it's because of that little tiny pub with that tiny room above it and bands coming and playing. It's fantastic, isn't it?
But you've still been, but through all this time though, you should focus maybe a bit on the right. You've been continued to do your zines and all your writing, haven't you, for this whole period? You haven't really stopped doing that, have you?
Not really, no.
You're pretty prolific.
Yeah. I've got, as you've probably noticed, I can talk a lot and I've got lots to say. And initially I started doing it because like, I go to gigs and say, I live in Boston now. There's a band from Boston called Urkel or whatever. And people say, where's Boston? I've never heard of it. And nobody had heard of Urkel. No one had heard of the Indian Queen. No one even, I didn't even know where Boston was till I met my girlfriend from there. But so I thought I'll do a fanzine and try and give it a bit of publicity. I wasn't intending it to last like 50 odd issues, but so I just did live reviews of the gigs, interviews with the bands, things like that, and reviewed some records. And then a couple of issues later, I had an idea to write stupid things I used to do when I was a kid, like messing about at school and riding your bike around the woods, things like that. And that became quite popular. People seemed to like that. So I carried on writing it. And like 30 odd issues later, I was thinking I've pretty much written my entire life story. So that got put out as a book by Andrew Culture from Beat Motel fanzine. And then more nowadays, I write about things I've done now. Because I think, I'll say this because I think, and this is something I've said before, that I think the everyday, the mundane, like our lives are just as worth archiving, and those stories are just as worth telling because nobody else is going to, are they? But if you went to a gig in a pub on Monday night and there were like 30 people there and it was amazing, that if you don't write about that, it'll disappear from history. If you want to know about the Sex Pistols, there's millions of books, isn't there? If you want to know about the Damned or whatever, but we've got to write our own history, haven't we? Because no one else will. So I think like the everyday stuff we do is just, there can be humour, there can be a poignant story or a funny anecdote. Just like I've written about going to a gig where the last few lines, and the bands were really good, by the way. You know, something funny happened on the way there. Or like I went to Lincoln last Halloween and I just witnessed some lunatics in the street just behaving strangely in Tesco and things like that. And that's like 2 pages of writing for me done. I can spin a yarn about that sort of thing. I'm always looking for funny sort of everyday things that you can turn into something interesting.
Because I always like your record reviews because they kind of go off on one and then come back in.
Yeah. But sometimes I talk about the records, don't I?
Yeah, I really like them. Yeah, they're always great.
Yeah, because I think like I could say, this band are really fast and heavy and they sound a bit like this band and that band, and it's good. And it's not very interesting, is it? So I think there's plenty of other ones do that much, much better than I do. So I think if I can write about how I came across that record or a gig I saw that band at or how I first met that band or something, I think that's a far more interesting story to tell.
Yeah, it's always a good take. I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
But you're still. I mean, obviously, because I know you're still doing all your reviews and stuff like that, and so you're still listening to a lot of new stuff, aren't you? You're not like
constantly. Yeah.
You're still enjoying all new stuff coming out.
Yeah. I went Thursday night. I went to see Irk from the Northeast. Do you know that band?
No.
They're, I think they're from Newcastle, but some of them are from Sunderland and some of them are from Middlesbrough. And I'd seen them up in Middlesbrough earlier this year, and they were fantastic. And they were playing Nottingham on a Thursday, and I thought, oh, why not? So I just drove out to see them, and there was a Dutch rave punk band playing with them who were rather bizarre, and a band from Leicester that I've seen half a dozen times. So it wasn't exactly an essential gig to go to, but I'm glad I went because it was fantastic. And I met, like I said, about 4 or 5 people that I know, bought a CD, and they gave me some stickers, things. So, and then, it goes in the pile. I've got piles of stuff to look at and listen to. So, I'm always looking for new bands to see, as well as listening to all the classics.
Are you still going out on a school night?
School night, bloody school night. Yeah.
Still got to get up in the morning, go to work.
Yeah, I had to get up in the morning, go to work. But I had a new CD to listen to in the car, didn't I? So it was worth it. Yeah. And
you doing some stuff at the minute as well, putting some gigs on. Was it Bobby? What's it called?
There's a couple of things I'm involved in. There's a group of people called Boston Independent. Let me start again. Boston Original Bands Initiative.
That's it.
And it's a group of musicians they're not like punk people. They're not into punk at all. It's not a punk thing. But they asked me to join with my experience and be part of it and help out. And they had the idea that 2 of them are a retired couple who are in a band, like they play guitar with backing tracks, called Hedgehog Reality, and they're really, especially Terry, is like really dead set against covers bands, tribute bands. He's like puritanical about it, originals only, and he wanted a scene where you could have bands but not tribute and covers bands, who get paid like 250 quid and pack out a pub just covering Foo Fighters and Oasis, and it's boring, isn't it? So they wanted to set up, and there's a band called Tiny Forehead who were sort of garage rock, a bit gothy, a bit weird, avant-garde, sort of. They're peculiar. And the singer of them, a fella called Simon, he books the bands as well. And they asked me to help out, so I tried to, bring some punk bands to town as well, but they put on indie, rock, folk, blues, electronic bands. They put on all sorts, and with varying degrees of success. Like some gigs are really well attended, others maybe not so much. But that's been interesting because it means there's a gig every month to go to. But also, just recently, we've had Punk for the Homeless have started doing gigs in Boston as well, which is punk. And that's usually all day as a pub round the corner, like 5 minutes walk from our house. And a lad called Dan Arthur does that for the Punk for the Homeless group. So I go and help out there. I've helped like the stall that he does sometimes. I've given some zines and things for the raffle or the stall. And finally, we have a new gig collective. Our first gig is this Saturday, which is Estelle. Do you know Estelle, Karl? You'll probably know Del.
I know Del.
Yeah, Del's sister Estelle, who booked the very first IQR gig, which was, I believe, Mega City 4 in May 1988. Wow. She was one of the original wave of people who moved away just as I'd arrived. Well, she's moved back here. She lives in Horncastle, a little town about half an hour away. And she came over, introduced herself, and started coming to some of the Bobby gigs. And said, I'd like to put a gig on. And I've got some bands want to play. I said, who is it? She said, Onlooker and Diaz Brothers. And I was like, yes, that's 2 of like the best bands in Britain at the minute. And I said, yeah, I'll help you out, definitely. So, and Lee from Urco, who's now in Gristle, Lee got involved as well. So between us, we've got a lineup on Saturday that is just ridiculous. It's Onlooker, Diaz Brothers, House Proud, Gristle and Unified Action. So 4 bands from sort of Middlesbrough, Sunderland, Newcastle way, plus a local band. And we've sold a good few tickets already, and we're expecting a good turnout. We've got a venue that capacity about 150, so we're optimistic that we'll nearly fill it, I think. But I mean, if that lineup doesn't do it, then nothing will it? But so yeah, I'm always like busy helping out and doing stuff because, well, I'd like to go to a gig, have a few beers, and not have to drive there, and I can then walk home afterwards.
But you still keep going, Marv. You ain't slowing down, are you?
No. I go to gigs all the time, and I've got piles of records. My record collection's getting stupid now. It's I've not run out. I've not got too many. I've just run out of room. But yeah, I'm constantly getting new stuff. People send me stuff to review all the time. So yeah, I just keep going because it's worth doing, isn't it?
Yeah, for all the reasons you kind of outlined, really, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's worth doing because I'll become friends with those bands. I'll meet them. I'll go see them at a gig, introduce myself, and then you know them. And you meet them at the next gig, or they come and play Boston, or I go to their town, see them, and send me the next record, and it just keeps going, doesn't it?
That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's like my daughter always says to me, it's like, Dad, is everybody you know playing bands? Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's the people I know. Yeah. That's where I met all my friends.
Yeah, because my niece lived in Nottingham for a while. She was at university there. And she said, Breacher, who are a Boston band, but Danny, the singer, lives in Nottingham, were playing, and she got in touch with me and said, oh, Marv, that band you know are playing. I've bought a ticket. Are you going to go? So I said, yeah, I'll come with you. So Bruise Control played, Breacher, Reduced, a new band from Boston, Nottingham, sorry, are really good. A few other bands, and Scene Killers, that was it. And she was just there, and she said, "How come you know everybody? How come we know everybody?" And it was just because I've been doing this for 30 years, and it sort of opened her eyes that the gigs like that sort of gig is something completely different to go and see. I don't know, got to see Iron Maiden at Newcastle City Hall or something. It's a totally different world, isn't it?
Yeah. Two totally different things, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we've had you speaking a long time, Marv. So I should probably let you go. No, but I was just thinking, like, what would be like a couple of new bands or records, new things that you're really liking at the minute?
At the minute, well, I better give Gristle a shout out, my mates from Boston. If you've not listened to them yet, you should do. They've just put out 2 new songs as like a digital single, and they've got a CD demo of the other 5 they recorded. And yeah, they're just raging hardcore, just good old fashioned 80s nasty, unpleasant, brutal hardcore, which is, well, that's all I want some days. That's perfect for me. Another one, that's the thing, Irked from Newcastle, Middlesbrough, Sunderland, where it's a bit of a disservice. Don't let's put you off, but initially I thought they're a bit Amel and the Sniffers, but if you see them live, they're much more of a hardcore band. They sound much more punk, but they're like a sort of, they're not full on raging, like a mid-pace hardcore, I'd say. And they're really good. Got a really engaging front woman who jumps about. And last time I saw them, she was wearing a Middlesbrough kit, which curried favour with the locals. So that impressed me. And there's a band from Nottingham, Reduce, that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's Austin, who you'll know. He was in Scene Killers. He was in what's called Shreds back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Jess, what's he called? I can't remember what else is in them. But yeah, they're total Saints worship. You know, they're like the old Australian sound. They've got an EP out that's really good, and they're a cracking live band. And I've seen them a few times in Nottingham. They're 7-inch is well worth tracking down if you like that sort of thing. And one last band, Zero Again. Have you heard that? Yeah, Ian Glasper and
I love them.
They're fantastic. Yeah, big stompy hardcore with like a hooligan of a front band just terrorising the crowd. They're brilliant live band as well. So
I've just seen Gaz a 3 7-inch split 7.
Yeah, you did split, right?
Was that one?
that was it. Yeah, you did, didn't you? Yeah,
A split. So I had a spare one, so I've just sent it to Gaz.
Lovely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that was Glasper in that band.
Yeah. One of his million bands he's been in.
Stamping Ground are playing again, aren't they?
Are they?
They played Saturday.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're doing shows again, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they played Saturday in London. I saw, I think it's a sold out show.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I
great.
wasn't sure who the singer was, though, if it was an original singer. I didn't recognise him.
No idea. I don't think Chris went. I'll ask him about it. Marv, so we had a few new ones. What are a couple of old classics for you?
The Zero Boys, Vicious Circle.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That is a record that I will never, ever, ever tire of listening to. It never, ever gets boring. Every time I listen to it, it's just that mental rush of adrenaline that it's just wonderfully sort of high impact, snotty, aggressive, angry punk rock. It's perfect. I like all that stuff, Dead Kennedys and Circle Jerks, but that is just one of the greatest punk records ever, I think. And I'm going to be a bit predictable. Should I say Blondie Parallel Lines? But you knew that was coming. But I'd say Discharge, the LP. I know everyone goes on about the Y 12-inch, but for me, the first Discharge LP is like nothing else. It's like the end of the world to music, isn't it? It's just, no matter how many bands sound like that or copy that or do that, you just go back to that and it's unmatched. It's just so ferocious. It's unreal. Mm. So they're 2-3 records that from punk anyway that I'll take to my deathbed with me.
And if you could, because obviously you're a writer, a prolific zine writer, if you could shout out a couple of zines that you think are worth checking out.
Oh, there's quite a lot at the minute that are coming out quite regular. There's Suspect Device, obviously. That's the granddaddy, isn't it? That's Tony and Gaz just keep knocking that out, and it's consistently really, really good quality, even though he prints my nonsense every time. There's Lunchtime for the Wild Youth, which it's not a punk zine as such, but he started off cataloguing every gig he'd been to, and then he ran out of gigs. He'd like written about them all, so he started doing an annual for a year, and he started with 1985, and he said, I want everybody to pick an album from 1985 and write about it. And then when that was successful, next month it was 1986, and then 1987, and so on. Wow. And he's up to, I think, 2005, 6 now. So each issue is just a group of writers, and people write about all manner of stuff. Somebody wrote about Robbie Williams or Kylie Minogue, and then I wrote about Drop Dead. So it's, do you know what I mean? It's whatever you want to write about, and it is a really wide range of writers and styles. It's called Lunchtime for the Wild Youth. That's a really good one. And Lights Go Out is phenomenal. He just keeps going. He puts zines out, constantly. And I always write something for him as well, reviews or columns or interview bands, that sort of thing. And it's punk and indie generally, but again, he sometimes goes off in tangents, does other things. There's Positive Creed, there's Issue, there's countless. There's loads of good zines at the minute. Eaten Alive is still going. So yeah, I mean, I could be here all day listening.
Sounds like it's in a pretty healthy place at the minute, by the zine.
There is, yeah. And there's this tawdry pamphlet called Gadgie you may have heard of as well. So, issue 53 has just come out with Wolf Beast Destroyer and last season's winners interviews in. Amazing. Plus something about the Grange Hill album, and one night I got really drunk and disgraced myself. So, and something about Black Death as well. So, quite a variety.
Will you be selling that at the gig on Saturday?
I will. I will have copies at the gig, plus all the back issues.
Pick me up on Karl. You're going to the gig, isn't you?
I will. I'll pick one up on Saturday.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. I'll see you Saturday at the gig, won't I? Yeah.
Yeah, going to see my dad in his new care home in Old Beach in the day. And then
you're bringing him.
I'll tell you what, he'd enjoy it.
He'd probably like Diaz Brothers, wouldn't he? Everyone else seems to, don't they? So.
Well, some of the nonsense that he's had to put with over the years in his shed and in the house, I think he'll deal with it. Trust me. The crap he's heard.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic gig, and I'm hoping it has a little bit of that old Indian Queen vibe about it, and not just a bunch of us old people stood around like nodding and clapping. I hope there's a bit of madness in the air. So
yeah, you'll have to start the human pyramids and all that business.
Yeah. Not with my bag, but
it's like you say. Well, that's one thing I remember about the Indian Queen. It's like people tell me about it, it's crazy. Was that picking the guitarist up and running away with him during the middle of the gig? It's awesome.
Yeah, taking him outside, out onto the smoke balcony, downstairs, and it was crackers. Yeah. It was a wild old place, and like I say, I'm here now because of it. Let's be honest. Yeah. And I'm still doing this because of that. If I'd have moved to Boston and there wasn't a music scene, and I'd have moved away and got a job somewhere else, I don't know. I'd probably be normal now. And I'd have a bigger house and a flash motor, and I'd be loaded. I wouldn't have spent it all on records and driving up and down the country to gigs and buying hundreds of bloody T-shirts that I don't need. But that's another story, isn't it? We all do that, don't we?